Today we're going to set up the oxygen stamina bar. So we're going to go to the canvas, which I named HUD panel, and I'm going to go to UI, and I'm going to find panel. I'm going to name this something related to the player because this is where all the player stats are going to be. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the size of this because I don't want it to cover the entire screen. I want it just to be the lower portion of the screen, so it'll stay docked at the bottom. If you click on this little box here and then select Shift Alt, you can actually change the pivot point either to the bottom or the middle. Either corner is fine. I'm going to do it to the bottom. Now I'm going to go ahead and adjust the width or the height. You can change it however you want depending on what you're going for. I'm going to keep it going the entire width of the screen, and I'm just going to change the height. Don't worry too much about this. This is just to keep everything in place. This is actually going to be transparent, so we're not actually going to see it. It'll just keep everything nice and tidy. So in this, I'm going to also create a child. This is going to be a UI element, and this will be an image. This is where the actual radial image will be for our oxygen meter. So I'm going to go ahead and create a, change the file size to just a circular image that I have prepared. I'm going to adjust the size of that till I like how it wants. I want it to be visible to the player, but I don't want it to take up too much screen space either. So I think actually 200 by 200 works pretty well for this. I'm going to also change the pivot point for this as well. This is going to be in the bottom left of our parent, which is the panel we made. And then I'm going to adjust it so it's not exactly at the corner, so give it some space. This is all just going by ear. Whatever you see looks good, that's what we're going to go with. To me, this looks about right, so I'm going to leave it there. So this is actually going to be behind our progress bar, so this will be the empty image, if you will. When we don't have any oxygen, this is what we're going to be able to see. So I'm going to try to make this some sort of gray, some black, just to kind of show visually that it's going to be empty. I'm going to adjust the transparency as well, just because I don't want it to be completely black or completely gray. I want it to have some little bit of style here. I'm not going to worry too much about it at this point because we are going to update the UI later on. This is just to get everything a place so we have something to work with. And this is about right. This is kind of what I wanted to look. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this, and I'm just going to rename this as my filled layer. That way I know this is the actual part that's going to change color and actually move. So I'm going to change this to a bright blue, just so it's visually appealing for oxygen. I'm going to play around with that for a bit. I'm going to make it completely opaque. I don't want it to be transparent at all. I'm going to change the fill type to filled. And you can see here this will actually allow it to go around in a radial pattern, which is what I like, which is what we want for this. Just kind of playing around with how that looks. Now I'm going to go ahead and create some kind of visual to show that this is oxygen, so maybe a text box. I'm going to go ahead and label that oxygen text so I can remember what it is later down the road. For now, I'm just going to print that it's oxygen. Later on, I'm going to play with displaying the actual percentage of how much oxygen is left for the player. Again, I'm going to go ahead and change that pivot point so it's in the middle of that circle instead of just randomly in the middle of our panel. So again, Shift and Alt will let you move that very quickly. I'm also going to make that white just because it seems to stand out a little bit more on our current background, which is gray, which will fit nicely with our actual map as well, which there's a lot of grays on the walls and the floor tiles. Okay, now I want to change the font. So you can see here, this is just the standard font. I already uploaded some custom fonts that we're going to be using for the game. And let me go ahead and just change that. So whenever you want to do a custom font, you can just drag and drop it into your assets folder for Unity. And then once it's there, you can just change it to whatever you like. I'm going to play around with the size a bit because I want it, again, to be very big so the player can easily read it, but I also don't want it to be too big where it looks kind of ugly. Again, this will probably be changed later, but just for now, just so we have something basic. And I kind of like that 36 size. Again, you can play around with exactly how it looks, where it is, but this is good for now, I think. So just kind of test it out one more time. There's our oxygen meter.